What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you on Lucid. With today being the very last trading day in 2023, I want to go over some of the highlights from 2023, but more importantly, talk on 2024, where I see things, delivery numbers, price targets, everything that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So like I mentioned, with today being the very last trading day in 2023, we can kind of look back at some successes and failures. So far, looking at Lucid, it did go down over the last 1 year, 37.16%. So not necessarily the best success rate, especially the broader markets, indexes, like everything was just up, not Lucid. So kind of had a fail for that. Hopefully bigger and better things will be coming in 2024, but I'll talk on all of that. Based on the Q3 numbers, they did say production outlook for 2023 is revised to 8,000 to 8,500 vehicles from prior guidance of more than 10,000 to prudently align with deliveries. And so this sentence is very messed up because they use the word production as well as deliveries in the same sentence. Because like in the past though, prior to Q3, they've always used deliveries as a benchmark. So why use the word production? It's very kind of messed up. But regardless though, so far year to date, or I guess up to Q3 numbers, they have produced 6,037 vehicles, delivered 4,267 vehicles. So assuming that they are still using deliveries as a benchmark for this, they need to deliver roughly around 4,000 vehicles in Q4 of 2023. And the best quarter that they have ever had, that they've ever produced any vehicles and delivered, was in Q4 2022 when they did 1,932 vehicles. So assuming everything, unless they had some miracle happen, it is fair to assume that they are going to miss on their Q3 production, or I guess delivery targets, which in the end, the market might not necessarily like. So that is kind of some summarization, if you want to call it that, for 2023. 2024 though, originally based on 2021, they did forecast around 90,000 vehicles in 2024. And realistically though, I feel like it will be around 25,000. Even also on a side note, you can kind of see that they use the word deliveries, meaning that they have always used deliveries as a benchmark versus production. But aside from that though, so I feel like 25,000 deliveries in 2024 is going to be fairly realistic. You also have to assume that they're going to be having the AMP2 facility up and running. So that'll be able to produce 5,000 vehicles every single year. Of course, it'll kind of ramp up eventually, but 5,000 for 2024. So that should be fairly good in among itself. And yeah, so I feel like 2024 might be fairly good if they do come out next quarter. So once the Q4 2023 earnings do come out and they give guidances for 2024, if it is somewhere around the 15,000, I feel like the market is just going to shit all over Lucid. Pardon my French. So it does have to be at least 25,000 or higher for their 2024 targets. That's just my own interpretation. Clearly, I'm not a financial advisor. You guys always do your own due diligence. So aside from that though, there is this that recently did come out. So it does say global electric car sales as of October 2023. So this is the most updated information that is out there. And it does show on a global scale a lot of demand. So on a global scale, EV sales did go up 37% year over year. That's awesome. Amazing stuff. China up 41%, Europe 24%, and the States up 26%. Very surprising, the amount of demand that is coming out of the States. Initially, I don't think it was anticipated, so that's a fairly positive thing. And it does work out to be about 9.4% of the share. So that's 9.4% of all the new vehicle sales are EVs. So definitely that is very, very surprising, but very positive. Gives a lot of good hope for 2024 for Lucid and a lot of the other EVs, because you have to factor in October 2023, inflation was high, interest rates were high. So despite both of those circumstances, people still need vehicles and are buying vehicles, and they're preferring, so far based on this data, EVs. So once again, that might really stand to benefit and help Lucid in 2024. Starting off though, let's talk on some catalysts. So there's two main catalysts coming out in 2024 that could really benefit the stock price. First one is an obvious one. So Gravity. When it comes down to the reservations, I feel like they're going to be unveiling and opening up the reservations prior to the Q4 earnings. So that should be around February, give or take. And of course, they did say near the tail end of 2024 is when they'll be kicking off production. So no matter what, this is a very good thing. 80,000 for our price target, or I guess a price is fairly good as well. The market really liked that. So now Lucid just needs to deliver. So this is going to be a very good catalyst for 2024. The only other one that I feel like might be a good catalyst is this, and that is ESS. Even though Q1 2023, Lucid did say that they're not really going to be pursuing ESS for the foreseeable future. But since then, there's been a hell of a lot of articles coming out saying that Saudi Arabia is really developing their infrastructure to accommodate for ESS and various other things. So I feel like the PIF might forcibly kind of push Lucid to do ESS, because based on this, it even says ESS could kind of earn Lucid about 22.8 billion by 2030. That's huge. The fact that Lucid might be overlooking this and not really pursuing that is one of the stupidest things I could ever see happening. So I feel like when it comes down to this upcoming Q4 earnings, when it gives us an opportunity for Q&A, I'm really going to be pushing almost every single video for someone to ask the question about ESS. Because myself being a Canadian, I've said this, kind of been pissed off about it every single opportunity. I cannot pose any questions. It's very crappy of a scenario, but they don't really like Canadians as bad as it is. So hopefully upcoming, someone asks a question about ESS. But regardless, I feel like this might be coming out in 2024 realistically and will be a very big catalyst for Lucid. But when it comes down to shorts, like I mentioned, there being only kind of two catalysts in 2024, shorts are going to be all over Lucid, no doubtably. And even when it comes down to their delivery targets for 2024, if it's not in line for like 25,000 or higher, then yes, they're still going to shit all over Lucid. My apologies again for my language. But going into 2024, the short interest is 24.2%, 214.25 million shares overall are being shorted. This new transparency rule by the SEC might stand to benefit. So this is going to be incorporated going forward for Q1 of 2024. So the new 13Fs, as well as any companies on the threshold list, that will really stand to benefit. So maybe this might actually deter some shorts to stop the malicious and abusive shorting that is happening with Lucid. And in turn, it might actually go down to possibly 20, maybe even 15%. It all does come down to Lucid and what they're able to produce and deliver as far as numbers. So in my opinion, I feel like that is coming in 2024, just a lot of battles with shorts. But moving on though, talking on numbers. So based on their last earnings, so the Q3, they did have 4.42 billion in cash equivalents and short-term investments, 479.73 million in long-term investments, and 2.41 billion in debt. And a lot of that debt is just long-term debt due 2026. So kind of far out still. But no matter what, based on their earnings, they are still burning through a ton of cash, 2.66 billion in fact. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that this does not add up. And this is something I've been saying almost every single earnings, that 𝗪𝗂𝗧, who has obviously since been left from the company, but she's been wrong. Their last earnings, Q3, said that they have sufficient amount of capital well into 2025. They didn't give a specific quarter, they just said well into 2025. Clearly, based on this, you can kind of assume that like the numbers don't add up. They will need to dilute either by the tail end of Q2 2024, if not Q3. And I've been almost 100% on point every single time I've ever said that. Even I said the latest round of dilution they will need in Q4, probably near the tail end of 2022. And what did they do? A huge amount in December. I believe it was December 14th or somewhere around there. But beside the point, I've always been on point exactly when they do need to dilute, and that is something that is going to be coming mid-year as well. So something just to kind of consider overall. But moving on from that, I've talked on production, delivery estimates, catalysts, money, so balance sheet. So let's talk on price target. Starting off by looking at options, which is only a mere sentiment, but this is looking at all the open interest for the call options. There is a consensus that it'll be around $8 or higher by mid-year. And so that's kind of positive. It's at least a double based on this, a lot better than what has happened in 2023. But realistically, I do feel that there's going to be a lot of headwinds that is affecting and will affect Lucid, unless there is some other surprise catalyst that does come out, such as further licensing, maybe Apple, you never know, just throwing that out there. But regardless though, price-wise, analysts currently have a consensus of $5.21, and that does represent a 23.75% upside. And so analysts are not optimistic about Lucid, especially given the current circumstances in the broader market. Like, they're punishing a lot of stocks that are heavily reliant on debt, and Lucid fits that criteria. So right now, like, analysts don't see much upside with Lucid, clearly only 23%. Looking at some of the recent action in the short term with Lucid, it did really fail to get above this $5.46 resistance. So in my opinion, I feel like best case scenario, very best, it'll be between the $6 to $7 range. Worst case scenario, it is going to continue to trend down, maybe even get to around the $2 range. So once again, that's kind of both extremes. So far, no analysts are really anticipating Lucid to continue to trend down, but again, there's kind of mixed feelings on how there might be a recession in 2024. So I'm just kind of projecting that if there is a recession, then anticipate Lucid to continue to trend down, maybe around the $2 range, because you also have to factor in, right? Of course, looking at Lucid, a lot of people always like to look at metrics and the multiples and whatever else. Currently, Lucid does have a PS ratio of 13.9. That is still rather high. Even Rivian is at 7 right now. Polestar, which produces a ton more vehicles than Lucid, they are at 1.3. Tesla's at 3. So in reality, Lucid, to get to those levels, does need to lower the share price to accommodate that. That way this multiple will kind of adjust accordingly. But realistically, even as it stands, if it's going to be compared to even Rivian levels, like, it would need to be at about 250. So of course, I wish I was completely wrong and that this goes to the moon, like $20, $30, $40 or whatever else. But realistically, given everything and Lucid's like lack of really ramping up sufficiently to what their original targets were, which was this, because in 2023, they were talking on 49,000 vehicles being delivered, not 8. So they are a fraction of what they projected. So I think that maybe $6 to $7, like I said, is probably the best case scenario, and worst case scenario is 2. But there's a lot of things that could change all of that. Like I said, their 2024 numbers, their production and delivery numbers. There's a lot of variables that need to be kind of plugged in, but let me know your thoughts on that. Where do you think that Lucid is going to land by the end of 2024? Do you think it's going to be between the 6 and 7 or significantly lower? What's your viewpoint on Lucid? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And take advantage of this promo. It is only up until December the 31st, so a couple days left. Sign up for an account with Moon with $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So take advantage of this. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, I appreciate all of you watching.